Hello and welcome to Wagner's Tech Talk. Today we're going to take a look at the Super Console X Stick. This retro gaming device is slightly larger than a Fire TV stick and includes 50,000 plus games. We'll set it up and of course see how well they play. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's open the box to the Super Console X Stick. It says it smoothly runs 80 plus emulators, including PSP, Dreamcast. We gotta check that out. MicroSD card. It's got two USB ports, an HDMI, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth. We'll have to check that one out too. Let's see here. Are we happy or unhappy? Well, I guess we'll find out. Let's take a look here, and this is the Super Console X Stick. Kind of interesting. Kind of looks like a Fire TV stick, maybe a little bit wider. Pretty neat. There's some ventilation on the bottom. There's already a micro SD card installed, and to the right here, that's where your micro USB gets plugged in for the power. On the end here, you have two USB ports. And of course your HDMI, and you also get an HDMI extender for those hard to reach areas. Very cool. And there's the rather cheap controller. No, it's not a rattle, it's a controller. But we're going to open it up, and inside is the receiver for the controller. And that's not all, folks. If we remove this piece, it reveals even more stuff under there. Here you have actually a pretty decent air mouse. This is for controlling the Android TV side of things. And it also includes a dongle. Actually, all of these controllers do. And our USB Type A to micro USB for the power. And here we have a 4-port USB 2.0 hub. And a USB power adapter. And a fairly helpful user's guide, which pays close attention to detail, as you can see here. So definitely check it out. Before you even power this device on for the first time, I highly recommend making a backup copy, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Essentially what you want to do is launch Win32 Disk Imager. I'll put links down below on where you can download this. Simply go in here and browse and identify the folder where you want to create the image file and give it a name. I'm going to call it Super Console X Stick backup.img, and then click the read button, and it'll take the contents from the micro SD card and write it to your hard drive. And when you're done, just click OK. Now if you needed to restore it, do it to a separate micro SD card, not from your original, and you use write. Select the image file and write. And that's it. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and put batteries in the controllers. And I actually wrote my image to a Samsung micro SD card, 256 gigabyte, instead of the original, so that way I can play around with this and not mess up the original. And I can always restore it if I need to revert back. Now we'll go ahead and plug in the USB hub with 4 ports, plug in the micro USB port and USB to the power, and go ahead and plug it into the stick. And for the HDMI, I'm just going to use this female-to-female adapter for my recording equipment and plug that in. Normally you wouldn't have to do that. Just use the included dongle. And here I'm trying to get it to connect up to the controller, and I was not having any luck. I tried both controllers, and then I realized the USB hub was getting extremely hot. So clearly something was not working right. So I went ahead and broke it apart to take a look. And from what I could tell, it appeared to be that there is a short between the red and the black wire. And I went ahead and did a continuity test. And I'm no expert on how this was wired, but if red and black are the power and the ground, then that explains the heat. And yeah, this could have damaged my PC if I plugged it into a PC. So yeah, be very careful. Instead, I just plugged the dongle directly into the USB port on the stick. About 8 videos back, I reviewed the Super Console X. If you want to catch that video, this is what the thumbnail looks like, and you can see it in my video list. Both devices have a microSD slot and two USB 2.0 ports. The Super Console X has an AV port as well as Ethernet, which is missing on the Super Console X stick. Both have HDMI output as well as power inputs, which are different types of connectors, and of course a power switch. And the power switch on the stick is right here on the cable. To make it easier, I used a black Sharpie to write RM for remote, so I know which dongle goes with what device. I'm going to pop the microSD card out and plug in that dongle, and we're going to go ahead and boot it up into Android mode. There are definitely cheaper options for an Android TV box type setup like this, but still I want to show you that you can move the cursor around using the remote, and if you hit the button up here, you can move a tile at a time instead of using the mouse cursor. Let's go over to the settings and go down to the Bluetooth section. And I'm doubtful that the Bluetooth even works. I was unable to see any Bluetooth devices in my setup. Netflix did seem to work okay.
Hey, the sooner we get this over with, the sooner we can all have cake.
You also have access to the Google Play Store, and with 16 gigabytes of internal storage, you can install quite a few little apps. In fact, I went ahead and installed Zen Pinball just to try it out. And it worked pretty good. Now let's move on to what you're really here to see, and that's the retro game emulation. I'm going to pop the microSD card in and go ahead and power on the controller. And when the device first boots, you will see an animation being played, and I'll show you how to turn that off if you'd rather not see that every time you power on the unit. Now that the device is booted up, I'm going to switch over to video capture so you can get a better look here of the emulators and games. And we'll scroll through rather quickly, but I do want to stop right here, and you can see we have 50,030 games. That's quite a few games. Feel free to hit the pause button if you want to see how many games are actually installed for the emulator you're interested in. While not required, if you'd like to hook up your device to your Wi-Fi network, simply go down to Network Settings and enable Wi-Fi, and then where it says Wi-Fi SSID, select yours. Mine is Lucas and is on a 5 gigahertz band, so I'll go ahead and select that, enter my passphrase, press the back button and go back in, and you'll see that you are connected. I've had issues in the past making changes to the video mode, so I highly recommend not making any changes under EmuElec settings video mode. However, if you want to disable that video on boot up, simply move on down to always show boot video and uncheck that. Also, if you'd like to change the themes, just hit the start button again, move on down to where it says UI settings, go to theme set, and you could select a different theme. Just press the A button and back out, and it'll change the theme to match whatever you selected. Here's another one that's pre-installed. Kind of neat. And there's one other theme. It's called Pixel, so we'll go ahead and take a look at that. So we'll just repeat the same. Go into the theme set and pick Pixel, back out, and let's take a look at that one. And the artwork for some emulators is missing, so I'm going to go ahead and switch it back to the one that was already installed. And I'll show you one more setting that might be helpful to you. So let's say you select an emulator. You see this list of all the different thumbnails for the games, but you can only see 6 at a time. Just go into UI settings, go to theme configuration, and change the game list view style over to detailed. Now when you back out, it's going to look a little bit different. You'll see many more games in the list, and if you press the select button, then you can move to a particular letter. So if we want to go to G, for instance, we can go to Galaxian, Gorf, and yeah, play any of these games. Now, speaking of games, let's move on to the gameplay. All the games you see here are running EmuElec version 3.9, and we'll kick it off with Vertical Force on the Virtual Boy. And one of my favorite classic arcade games, Joust. Many games do play well up to PS1, but in fact, not all games even play. In this example, we'll take a look at Moon Patrol, and this is the message you get when you try and launch it. Now we'll move on to Donkey Kong Country on the Super NES. And now we'll take a look at 1941 Counterattack. And yes, you can even play the Game & Watch games such as this Donkey Kong. Even though the aspect ratio is a little messed up, it's still fun to play. Now we're looking at Aero Fighters 3 on the Neo Geo CD. And of course, the timeless classic Super Mario Bros. On the NES. Now we're taking it up a notch to Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped on the PS1. And one of my favorites, Tekken 3. Now switching over to the Dreamcast, we're going to take a look at Sonic Adventure 2. As you can tell, there's a little bit of audio distortion, and the frame rate is not exactly perfectly smooth. The audio distortion is going to be a little bit more apparent in this next title. Taking a look at Soul Calibur. There's also some visual artifacts as well. Moving on to Mario Kart 64 on the Nintendo 64. Now bringing it up to the PSP, we're playing Darius Burst. Now we'll check out Street Fighter Alpha 3. I hope you found this look at the Super Console X stick helpful. I think overall it's a decent device, a good starter device if you don't want to tinker at all or get your hands dirty with the ROMs. I mean, it does have 50,000 plus games pre-installed. I purchased the Super Console X and the Super Console X stick, and one out of the two had a bad USB hub, which is this one, of course. So from my point of view, that's a 50% failure rate, and I recommend not plugging it into anything of value such as your PC or laptop. The remote was actually fairly decent, and appreciate that they included that in the package. So yeah, that one's pretty good. I forced myself to use this controller for this video, and I'll be honest, it's usable, however it's not a great controller. It feels cheap and I did struggle a bit, but I guess it gets the job done. If you plan on playing Dreamcast, N64, or PSP games, and you don't mind learning something new, a little bit of tinkering, then my recommendation would be to get a Raspberry Pi 4 and build something more like this, which is a little bit more powerful, and I have a lot more information on my website to help you get started. If you're interested, I'll put a link down below. And that's it for another video. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, please click the like button. If you want to see more from Wagner's Tech Talk, please click the subscribe. And with that, I will talk to you very soon.